Yeah, good.
Madhyaji mam namaskuru, mame vaishyasi yuktvaivam, atmanam matparayanaha, sarvadharman parityajya, mamekam sharanam vraja, aham tvam sarva papebhyah, mokshayishyami ma shuchaha.
Namaste, everyone. So welcome back to actually, this is our first session, even though we had a session last week that was an orientation week. So this is really officially the first session. Who's new this time? Let's see.
Rima.
Okay, Rima.
And Anjali.
And Anjali.
And Anjali, yeah.
Okay.
I believe
so Rima and Anjali, do you want to introduce yourself and then briefly tell us what grade you're in and why or what you're looking for from attending this session.
So my name is Anjali and I'm 14 years old. I'm going to 9th grade. And I'm not really sure what I'm looking for. This is my first class ever. I'm not too sure what this class is about, but I'm interested in learning on what's it.
So you're open-minded here.
Yeah,
right?
I'm free to learn anything.
Absolutely. So welcome. And who is the next person? Rima, right?
Yes. Hello, my name's Rima. I'm 15 and I'm going to 10th grade now. And I joined this to learn more about my cultural background and to have a more open mind to spirituality.
Great. So welcome. Welcome to the session. Anybody else who's new this week? Who wasn't here?
There was one other participant, Harshini. She did not get a chance to introduce herself last week.
Oh, okay.
Harshini,
you want to introduce?
Hi, I'm Harshini. I'm 13. I'm going into 9th grade, and I'm looking just to learn more about how spirituality connects with people's productivity levels. And
wonderful. Yeah. So we're going to be hitting all these topics that you mentioned. We'll definitely talk about our culture, which I call Sanatana Dharma, not Hinduism actually, but I may occasionally refer to it as Hinduism because that's the name that our culture is known by. So without further ado, I'm just going to go. I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation just like last time. So let me get right to it. Share screen. Can everyone see?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Okay, so a brief summary of what we talked about last time. So we introduced ourselves, especially young people, students, and then I talked a little bit about the program and then some of the expectations, and then the whole group, mainly the young people, brainstormed what spirituality means or what spirituality means for them. And I'll put that list on next page, and I'm going to keep that list for every single presentation that we're going to make. And then we together Googled the happiest man in the world, and we came upon this name. It's Matthew Ricard. I mean, I'm not pronouncing it correctly. It's a French name. Somebody last time actually pronounced it correctly. Anyway, and then we digged a little bit deeper into why he is the happiest man in the world. And we found out that his left hemisphere, left hemisphere of his brain was really intense in terms of gamma wave activity. And this is typical of anybody who's happy and relaxed. On the other hand, who's not, for someone who's not happy, someone is anxious and stressed out all the time, would have a greater activity in the left hemisphere. I mean, in the right hemisphere, sorry. And then we looked at some of the contemporary young people who live in the practical world. but who have used spirituality as a life skill tool to advance their career, to transform themselves, transform their lives. So examples are Jay Shetty and Radhi Shetty. They're a couple, young people. They're both Indian. They grew up in England. And one of the things that they say is you don't have to live like a monk. By the way, Matthew Rickard is a monk. None of us want to be a monk, right? But we still want to be productive, as someone said today in life. We want to make the best of our lives. How do we succeed in life? So we can use spirituality as a tool to be successful in whatever life we want to live. So that is a message that these young people, Jay and Radhi, talk about. And then we also looked at being your best. Some lessons that we draw from a video by Acharya means teacher, Vivek Gupta, also a young Indian guy. He's married. I mean, he's not a monk, but he is ordained in the tradition of Chinmaya mission. And one of the things that we took away from his teachings is that, focus on things that you can control and give your best in everything you do, whether it's your hobbies or studies or anything at all. Give your best. Why? Because by giving your best, you improve yourself. I mean, consider work, any sort of work, anything that you do as an opportunity to grow. So growth of yourself, that's the goal here. And then overwhelming response from participants was about stress in their lives. Now, I'm going to pause for a little bit, and then I'm going to ask if you have any questions. So do you have any questions from last time, or anything that we will be doing, or anything that you might expect from these sessions? Any questions? I'm going to write them down, and then we'll try to address them as best as we can. Questions? I know a couple of you had some questions last time, and you didn't get a chance to ask them because we kind of ran out of time. So I want to give you the opportunity to ask that question. Any questions about what you just heard, or anything that we will be doing in the coming weeks? Any questions at all, or comments?
I just have one question.
Yeah.
So it's about whatever we do, it's about how to maintain consistency in what we do.
Exactly.
That's I mean.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So
how can we be productive? How can we be productive? How can we reduce stress, manage stress, and be the best we can be in everything we do? So you may be a student, you may be a professional, you may be a parent. It doesn't matter what you do. So how can I put out our best effort, my best effort, and achieve what I want to achieve? So there's a large piece to it that is connected with spirituality. So that's why we talk about spirituality. We learn spirituality. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So let's go back to the document. So this is what people brainstormed last time. They talked about, spirituality means peace of mind, being more productive, being free from overly materialistic view of life, connect with our soul, heal ourselves and others in times of crises, and connect with and understand our soul. Somebody said, broaden our perspective, look into ourselves, be a better citizen, connect with God, understand our values. Okay, so I'm going to keep this list for the entire length of this program. Okay, so as I said last time, today we're going to look at spirituality in a scientific way, in a scientific light. That may sound like an oxymoron to some of you. What do you mean? Science and spirituality, can they coexist? And I personally think they can, and they do. Several scientists have turned to spirituality for inspiration and for peace of mind, in fact, and also for learning truth in a slightly different light. Okay, so for example, Nikola Tesla, this famous scientist, the Tesla cars are mainly named after him. He came over to the United States back in the 19th century as an immigrant. He did an amazing amount of work in science. And he said, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena. Remember, one of you said that she's interested in learning about non-materialistic world. So this is exactly what he's talking about, non-physical phenomena. It'll make more than 1 decade. What is that? I cannot read that completely because it's okay. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, it'll make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of existence. That's what it says. So yeah, and famous scientists like Einstein and Robert Oppenheimer, these people have turned to spirituality for guidance. So my goal is to demystify spirituality. It's not a mystical thing. And I want to use common sense approach to understanding ancient wisdom. Somebody mentioned our culture, right? Our culture is very, very old. Hinduism, or Sanatana Dharma, as it should be properly called, is ancient. It dates back to at least 10,000 years. Or like, I don't know. I don't know exactly how many years, but thousands of years. And rishis or seers in those times wrote some things down that are still applicable today. They're as relevant today as they were, 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000 years ago. But our job is to kind of unearth the wisdom hidden in there, and then apply that wisdom to the 21st century. Okay, so that's what my goal is, to tell you what you can do and where you can find references or more information. So there's a reason for that. Oftentimes, scriptures and religious practices are shrouded in mythology. People are not really taught the exact meaning, the significance of certain practices. But once you know them, once you know the true significance of these practices, it'll make much more sense in this day and age. Because in the 21st century, we want to know the why and the how, right? And also it helps by knowing that we go from divide to divine. That expression I borrowed from Dr. Vikrant Tomar Singh, a friend of mine. He is very much involved in universal consciousness, and I'll tell you more about that project later on. Now, some people say, well, why do you want to dissect and understand it scientifically? Aren't you kind of, destroying the beauty of it? I personally don't think so. If you look at the blue sky, yes, it's beautiful. But if you understand why it is blue, you only add beauty to it. So understanding it properly, any practices or anything that we do spiritually will only add meaning to it and significance or purpose to it. And as I said before, we can use spiritual practice as a life skill. Now, I want to ask you, what are the major sources of stress? So we'll just work on this together. All right. So sources of stress. Can someone just kind of shout out? Why are people, young people especially, stressed out? So this is a workshop. So I expect you to work a little bit, not just listen and then enjoy the talk. I want you to participate. So sources of stress. Who can give me some ideas? What are people stressed out about?
Schoolwork.
Sorry?
Schoolwork.
School work. Okay. Other things?
Thinking about the future.
Future. Yes. Or
College applications.
college.
Competition.
Competition. Peer pressure / competition. Okay. Anything else?
Unresolved problems.
Can you give me an example?
Like when you have a problem within like your friend group and like it's still not solved and you're just like feeling guilty about it.
Oh, somehow it's not. Okay, hold on a second. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So like social, right? Anything else? What about parents? Their expectations.
Expectations, fear of meets, whether they will meet it,
Expectations, fear.
and maintaining the level,
Okay.
whatever it is, anything, maintaining how the level is, the fear of going down, mostly the fear, I think.
Okay. So fear of not accomplishing or achieving, right? Not not measuring up. Yes.
Yeah. And if it is high standards, then maintaining it, that's also another stress.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you do well, then the stress is how to maintain it. We can go down.
Maintaining high performance. Yeah, that's a pretty good list. That's I would say a formidable list. I think.
Yeah, last week when they were talking about this pressure, I was really wondering, how come students get this much, almost everybody come into this pressure of, so I really thought about this topic.
Yeah, thank you so much. You know, I would even say this, parents might add to children's pressure, and probably vice versa. I mean, maybe parents are pressured because of the kids sometimes. But we should be aware of the sources of stress in order for us to be able to do something about that. That's the main point here. So, okay, here's the thing. The best way to proceed, or the best way to handle this is this. Let's not focus on achievement and performance only. Let's focus on our feelings, how we feel about ourselves. That's one of the things that Acharya Vivek Gupta always talks about. It's probably cultural as well. If you look at Indian or other Asian households, we have very high expectations, and some of that expectations can really cause distress among our children. That's because we are primarily focusing on accomplishments and achievements and performance, not who the person is. So in other words, back in the day, there was a lot of pressure from parents on someone to be a doctor or engineer, whether the child likes it or not. Oh, you're gonna sing, you're gonna dance, or whatever. So that is a real thing, especially in Indian households and other Asian households. So I think parents and children should definitely be aware of this scenario. So let me talk a little bit about our brain and how stress can induce unwanted, physiological processes and effects. So the human brain and stress. First of all, the word stress, as I said before, last time, is overused. Anything at all, let's say, you need to do something, you need to write a paper. Oh, I'm stressed. That's a little bit of an overuse of the word stress. So here's a famous Yerkes-Dodson graph of performance versus stress. If you look at it, performance is going to be pretty low if you have too little stress, this green area. However, if the pressure is beyond a threshold, then you start performing more, because if there's a deadline looming over you, you're focused, you're energized, you want to get this done, and then your performance is actually going up. However, if the stress persists, then at some level you experience the too much stress overload. At that point, you start to exhaust yourself. Your resources are exhausted. And then at the extreme end, that stress gives rise to anxiety and then total non-productivity. I don't know if you can see the whole the page. So in this region, the red region, which is what I call distress, it causes a lot of anxiety and panic and anger too. And then the child, let me just focus on the children right now. The child breaks down. Okay, this is the physiological process or psychological process. It is okay. So in terms of stress, if you look at the brain, we need to focus on 3 areas: the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala and the hippocampus. Now, prefrontal cortex is at the front of your brain. This area is responsible for rational thinking, decision-making, and executive functioning, and all that stuff. And amygdala is part of the brain stem, sometimes called the lizard brain, the most primitive part of the brain in the evolution sequence. The reptilian brain, sometimes that is called that. Now, amygdala is responsible for the fight or flight or freeze response for any stimuli, external stimuli. Okay, well, I'll talk more about that in the next page, but let me go to the hippocampus thing. That area of the brain is responsible for storing memory and learning, right? So learning new material. So in the perfect world, when there's balance in our thoughts and action, there's balance between these 3 regions, and the brain and the body work beautifully. Okay, but once one of these elements is triggered in an unusual way, then all that balance is lost. So let me summarize what each part does. As I said before, prefrontal cortex kind of, enables you, or is in charge of thinking rationally and behave rationally And then it also is involved in executive functions, okay? And this area, this prefrontal cortex, is what distinguishes us humans from animals. Animals don't have that. Amygdala, that is a leftover. I mean, I would say dates back to the most ancient form of Homo sapiens, right? We used to live in jungles, right? So when a tiger leaps onto you, you need to be able to act quickly. So any threat, real or perceived, is sensed by the amygdala and sends signals to other parts of your body and brain. So this area is really important in modulating emotional memories as well. But here's the thing, though. Right now, we don't have to be worried about a leaping tiger or a lion or something like that. We live in the 21st century. However, because of DNA that's passed on to us from our ancient forefathers or foremothers, we still have that. And somebody said it's high time that human brain has received a software update. Now, luckily, we have a tool. We can reverse that process by reprogramming our brain. And this is exactly what our practices, ancient practices, do: yoga or meditation and other things. Okay, so that's why it's important to learn spirituality in a practical way. Do you understand? Do you understand what the whole thing, the whole mechanism of it? Okay. Now, once any part of the brain is affected, it stores your, it affects your storing or memory and learning capability. When are you best at learning? When you're stressed or when you're relaxed?
When I'm relaxed.
Exactly. Have you ever seen or have you had experience of saying, "Oh my God, I knew that answer, but I forgot. I was panicking during the test. I was running out of time." See, so your amygdala kicks in, right? Your amygdala kicks in, and you cannot think rationally. And that's what happens to most of us during the day. So this amygdala hijack happens all too often in modern life. It could be, "Oh, I didn't check my email. Oh, I didn't check my WhatsApp message. Oh, my teacher sent me this message. I didn't look at it." All the time, including adults. So we constantly operate in a crisis mode. The amygdala is always charged up, and we find that we are distressed constantly. Okay, so what I like to do, what I like you to do, is break up into breakout rooms, and then kind of discuss what we discussed so far. And then I like you to share with the group what you learned, because unless there's participation, this kind of workshop doesn't make sense. So far, it doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't have to be exactly what I said to you, but what did you get so far from the discussion so far? Let me stop sharing, and then what's the best way to do breakout rooms? Let's see here. Let's see. Oh, Rupert, do you think, can you do the breakout room? I don't think I can do it.
Ajitata, can you tell me where I do this? Oh, actually, Lata Chichi was saying that for this account, it's not possible to.
Oh, really?
accounts.
Oh, I see.
But would it have worked in your personal account?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Okay. All right. So we don't have a breakout room today. That's okay. So why don't you just kind of shout out some of the thoughts that you have so far? What did you learn? You may not remember everything I said, but that's okay. Just be.
I learned today that a part of the limbic system, which is like the amygdala, it's what is responsible to our reaction to stress, or just like anything like that's like what's responsible for fight and flight.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody else? Give me something. It doesn't have to be even what I talked about. Something that you got out of the discussion.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Remo.
We learned how stress can affect your productivity and daily performance based on the levels of stress you have.
Awesome. Great. Is all stress good or bad? Is all stress bad?
I think a slight amount of stress is good to like kickstart you, but if it's going on for a long time, it gets really bad for you.
So when we say we overuse that word stress all the time, what do we actually mean is distress. Okay, and there are some technical terms for different kinds of stress, but we should be careful about what we actually mean. Stress, the word stress actually is just our response to external stimuli. Okay, let me get a couple of other thoughts. Just say something that yeah.
I learned about the different types of stresses and how they can be found in day-to-day lives.
Very good, very good, very good. Others? It's okay. It's okay if you make a mistake. It doesn't matter. Even if you repeat something, that's fine too, because sometimes repetition is the key to retention. Anybody else want to share something? Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Harshini?
I learned that there are 3 parts of the brain that help control stress and just kind of process the brain.
Yep. Very good. Very good. And we have a tool at our disposal that can mitigate the effects of the amygdala hijack. If there is a tool like that, shouldn't we be learning that and using it so that we can reduce stress and then perform at the optimum level that we are capable of performing? That to me, that's spirituality. Okay. All right. Let me go back to this thing. Now I'm going to give you another task. Okay. So next page, what I want you to do is Google sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Also, Google what chronic stress can do to your body and the brain. Okay, so 2 things. First, Google this, chronic stress, what can it do to your body and also to your brain? And also Google these, can you write them down? Sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Have you written them down? Okay, right. Let me just add a new slide so I can just, so your task, Google sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic. Google the effects, the let's see, the damage stress can cause on your body and health. Okay, that's your task. So let's give it, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, and then we'll regroup. Okay. And I would have liked to do this using breakout rooms, but we cannot use breakout rooms using this account. So I have to do this. This is plan B for me. So yeah, just open a new window in your browser and then Google these things. Okay, what did you find? You want to share, or do you need more time?
I can start if no one else wants to, but I found out that there are many negative health effects of stress, and it can play big problems in headaches, high blood pressure, heart problems, diabetes, skin condition, asthma, and arthritis, depression, and anxiety, which including stuff like asthma can be developed at any points of your life.
That's right.
And so if like someone has a genetic marker for like diabetes or something, it's just going to get worsened if they have a lot of stress.
Great. Yeah, that's exactly right. So someone said, I don't know if this is scientifically accurate, every disease known to man is probably caused by a stress. I don't know. I mean, it could be right, but I don't have solid proof of that. But I kind of believe it. Anybody else want to share what they found by Googling it? Did you get a chance to Google sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system?
So I Googled the parasympathetic, how do you say it?
Sympathetic nervous system.
Parasympathetic nervous system and
then parasympathetic.
Okay, parasympathetic. And the sympathetic nervous system. And it says that the parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for regular body functions when we are resting or sleeping.
Yep.
Stimulates digestion, activates the metabolism process, and just helps us to relax.
Yep.
And the sympathetic nervous system stimulates the body while it's awake. So those responses, like if the temperature is like hot, you'll sweat.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else?
In terms of the chronic stress, I was reading that for like teens and students, they get like a weakened immune system.
Yes.
To have more like issues and diseases that are going to come when they're younger.
Wow. So in like 5 minutes of Google search, found a lot of information, right? Anybody else that I didn't get to? Please feel free to share what you have found.
Just something to add to what Harshini said.
Yeah.
I also found that the sympathetic nervous system is like fully activated when you're under a lot of stress, and the parasympathetic is sort of used to like relieve that, like after stress effects.
Right. Wow. Okay, so that's more information that I could find in 10 minutes. Congratulations, really good job. You probably heard this in your science classes. Some of you may be familiar with it, but nonetheless, it's good to remember. So let me go back to the presentation. Anybody else before I go on? Also, I don't want to just move so fast so people don't get a chance to ask questions. If you have any questions, just shout out, okay?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I also want to say what I found.
Yeah.
I'm Heron, Harshini's brother, by the way.
Oh, hi.
So I found that being more stressed can reduce your lifespan.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Anybody else before I go back to the document? Anybody else? Any questions or comments? Mira, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right. So let's just go back to the document. Okay. All right, so here. So sympathetic nervous system is part of the autonomous nervous system. I have to check on that. That's not how you say it. It is responsible for any sort of amygdala hijack. Again, the fight, flight, or freeze response. So SNS or sympathetic nervous system is activated, and stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline are produced. Have you heard of them? Cortisol and adrenaline. So when these things are produced, what happens? Bodily functions such as digestion, temporarily considered non-essential, are shut off, or other functions of the body. And the body and the brain now are on overdrive, right? So what does that mean? It takes a lot of resources of your body that should be used in many different functions of the body. So now you're depriving the body of the natural resources that you have in your own body, in terms of digestion and the other processes, like cardiovascular processes and things like that. Why? Because stress can, like, for example, increase heart rate. It can cause diabetes, as someone said. So this is sort of like driving a car in low gear for a long time. Sometimes you do need to put in low gear. Well, let's say you have an uphill road, you need to put in the low gear, otherwise it won't pull the load. But if you drive that car in that gear for a long time, what will happen to the engine? It'll be completely destroyed, right? Same thing to our mind, or our body and mind. If you're continually under stress for a long time, all kinds of diseases can arise. The opposite of that is rest and relax. So in this mode, which is what activates the PNS, or parasympathetic nervous system, it says, hey, it's okay, I'm not in danger, let's just rest and relax, or rest and digest, some people would say. So one method to induce that kind of activity is to be among people who you love, right? When you're loved, when you're cared for, another kind of hormone is produced. It's called oxytocin. Oxytocin, a lot of times, is called the love hormone, which actually mitigates the effect of cortisol and adrenaline, so that your body and brain can go back to normal functioning. Now, why did I say all these things? Our focus is not the brain science, but spirituality. Spirituality focuses on one thing. What is it? Bring your system into parasympathetic nervous system habitually, intentionally. So intentionally relax. I will repeat, intentionally relax. Habitually, not during, when you're in a crisis mode, it's very hard to relax. But prepare your mind and brain habitually, like every morning, every evening or something. Practice, so that your brain is ready to handle situations that would otherwise be extremely stressful. That's the whole idea behind spirituality, spiritual practices, especially in Sanatana Dharma. I would even go to the extent of saying that there's no other religion that I know of that is so secular in concept. These principles apply to any human being, regardless of his or her caste or creed or color or nationality. This is scientific, objective. Okay. Now, what are some of the practices that we Hindus engage in? Chanting, be together with family, love each other. There are many different methods. They're called yoga. So when we are one with our soul, like know who we are, that stage is what we call yoga. Yoga means union. And there are different paths to that state of mind. That's what Hindu spirituality is all about. Okay. I think I'm a little bit under pressure with time, but I do want to say something about the Bhagavad Gita. In Sanatana Dharma, there are many different textbooks, but all the wisdom, all the knowledge can be found in 4 big volumes. They're called Vedas. Veda comes from the root word vid. Vid means to know. So Veda is basically knowledge. Okay. There are Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda, Yajur Veda, right? There are four Vedas. Now, Upanishads are the crux of these teachings in the Vedas. Now, Bhagavad Gita is really a summary of the, or maybe I should say essence of what Upanishads teach. So in order to practice Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma, you don't need to look farther than the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita to me is probably the most important religious, again, I say religious because, for lack of another word, textbook that we Hindus have. Now, chapter 1 talks about the distress that we talked about just now. Arjuna, who actually represents all of us, was a very, very exceptionally skilled soldier. And he was debilitated because of anxiety and fear. And he said, hey, I'm not able to do anything. He just rested his bow and arrow down, and then he said, I'm totally incapable of performing the task that I'm supposed to perform. That is chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, some of you know that the Bhagavad Gita is, okay, first of all, what does that mean? Bhagavad Gita means song of the Lord or song on the Lord. In fact, Sri Krishna spoke these words in the, during or right before a huge battle. Some of you may be familiar with the story of Mahabharata, one of the epics of Hindu culture. In that battlefield, now all options were exhausted and they came to war. And Arjuna, by seeing the troops and all the big bells and whistles, literally, of the war, he was overcome with emotion and he was distressed beyond belief, and anxiety and panic took over. And he said, I cannot do this. Have we all experienced this at some point or another in our lives? Of course. Try doing public speaking. I mean, Bhagavad Gita is talking about an extreme example. We're not, soldiers or warriors, but we experience that kind of grief and helplessness all too often because of pressure, external pressure. The symbolic meaning of this war is the following. The war is between 5 good guys and 100 bad guys. The 5 good guys, Pandavas, represent virtues in us. There may be fewer in number, but the vices or the negative thoughts or negative aspects of our personality outnumber the virtues. So that's the other side, Kauravas, 100 of them. So that's the symbolic meaning. Now, this whole Kurukshetra war described in the Mahabharata is a war within us, between these two sides. And how can we make a rational decision? By using our rational mind. And Sri Krishna represents our rational mind, okay, our intellect. And what about the 5 horses in the chariot that they use in the war? Those 5 horses represent our senses, 5 senses. So whoever is able to control our senses is able to control our mind. Okay, that is the gist of the message. I think we are out of time for now. I may have to talk about chapter 2 next time. But before I end and before we go, I want to give you an opportunity to ask questions, because last time I wasn't able to do it. Even if we take like 5 minutes extra, I think that's fine, right? Any questions about what we talked about? Any questions for our next sessions? What we'll be covering? Okay, so we're gonna dig deeper into the Bhagavad Gita and then, study it to the best ability, to the best of our abilities, and then see how the wisdom in those verses can be applied to our life, our real life. Okay.
Prasadata, one question here. Will
Yeah.
you be picking upon all the 18 chapters or just
I'll probably pick and choose, because
Sure.
18 chapters is probably beyond the scope of what we have envisioned for this program.
Mhm.
But I have a few verses that are, in mind because I want to touch upon, for example, the different kinds of yoga and the 3 gunas, sattvic and rajasic and tamasic, right? And how we are all under the influence of these gunas and how we can overcome that. And then I also want to talk about Sankhya philosophy and yoga. It's probably not possible for us to cover the whole 18 chapters.
True.
We can also separately, Rupa, we can start separately Bhagavad Gita, this one, to the youth and all. But what Prasadatan planned it, we'd go with that.
Yes, definitely. This is a great start, especially the correlation between in the first chapter itself. You said in one sentence as to what the entire first chapter is about. Like,
right.
The battle is very much within us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the whole war is really us.
Yes.
The battle within us.
Within us. Yes.
All right. Any questions or comments? One last chance. Don't be shy.
Please interact. Please interact. Yes.
Sorry.
I'm telling the youth to interact.
Yeah. All right.
This has been a great session, and I have to really, huge shout out to all the youth, because it was excellent participation from all of them. So,
very good. Excellently done. No
and
question.
all thanks to you, Prasadata, because I think you're bringing the right topics and right questions for them to interact. And so this is great. I'm so grateful to you.
Prasadata, we always hear, like control your mind, control your body. But today you explained it very scientifically to all of us, like how to tame your brain. That is what the whole idea was, how to bring that, both the nervous systems you explained, and how can you tame it. It is like just like taming a horse. That is how you explained it.
Yeah.
So we always hear it, but this is the first time I'm hearing like in a scientific explanation of that. Thank you very much.
Sir, please put it in the main group.
Yeah, I will do that. Okay, so I'll see you next Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.